Hey everyone, it's Ryder from Skip. It's Friday, July 30th. Important video today on EIDL grants and EIDL loans. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the targeted EIDL grants and some of the bad news there. There's still over $25 billion sitting there to be distributed. There's a lot of speculation on what's going to happen, and are those $10,000 and $5,000 grants going to get out to people or not? And a quick recap on EIDL loans as well. I'll keep this video very short. I hope you all have a great weekend ahead. Thanks so much for tuning in all week. We hope you find it valuable. If you do, please hit subscribe. And we're picking two $1,000 winners this Sunday. All you have to do is subscribe to this channel, turn on alerts, leave a comment in a video this week, and download our free Skip app. It's Hello Skip in the App Store and Google Play. Again, we are going to pick two $1,000 winners in this Sunday's video. A brief recap on EIDL loans before I talk about the grants. It's been a busy week, lots of good news overall. On Tuesday, the SBA said when they would get through all the EIDL loan increases. They said the middle of August. That's when they said the loan reviews had increased 10x to 20,000 a day from 2,000 per day in June. And our conclusion, good news, but we still need more data. And we got it the next day. The SBA released a little bit more in their webinar. They shared the total EIDL loan increase backlog, which they said was 600,000 people. They also shared more data. We did a few charts on this. In particular, that loan officers are now doing 15 applications per day, and before it had been 2 applications per day. And our conclusion on Wednesday was this is great news for the EIDL loan program applicants, even though hundreds of thousands of you are still waiting for initial decisions, let alone your reconsideration decisions. And yesterday, the SBA went further to say that they'd process close to 40,000 applications in one day, is technically 37,000 in one day, basically 20xing what the June numbers were. I would still love to know more about how they've done this besides increasing loan officer productivity, going from 2 to 15. You got to wonder, what were the loan officers doing before where they could only get through 2 a day? They must have substantially shifted the process. We'd love to know just to have confidence. You know, many of you have speculated that the way they've gotten this far is by just doing mass declines, but we've also heard many of you getting approved at a faster rate, so there has to be something on the approval side they've done as well. I'll link to all of those videos above if you want to catch up on the news from this week. By the way, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone supporting our content and our videos. You know, when you search EIDL news in Google today, the SBA is the top 2 results, as they should be, and we have the next 2 posts in line, plus videos from this week as well. So thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in for the past 16 months. You know, we've been doing these videos since March 2020. So thank you again for all your support, not only on YouTube here, but on our app and on our blog. It allows us to be at the top for basically every search related to EIDL, including for targeted EIDL grants and supplemental EIDL grants, and the news is not looking good. And here's why I think that, you know, there are millions of you waiting for targeted and supplemental EIDL grants. Only 8% of the targeted funding has been distributed. They just released new data today. That 92% that is still sitting there could help over 3.5 million small business owners across the U.S. Full stop. 3.5 million people could be helped, but for the eligibility for this program. I'll talk about that, but let me first show you the numbers. They just released this yesterday, July 29th. 313,923 targeted EIDL advances have been approved. That's up from last week's 299. So you can see the slope here. The light green is the targeted. The slope has remained consistent since May. Just underneath that is the supplemental, and that growth rate has stayed the same as well. The report this week showed that 240,000 folks have had the 5K supplemental EIDL advances. As I've remarked, the vast majority of people who've received targeted will also receive supplemental. So that's why these two track so closely together. But nothing has changed in approvals, mainly because of the same issues we've known about and the SBA has known about for months. In fact, the SBA is aware of this. They want to change this. Isabel Guzman does want to change the blocker here. But the headline today is that $25 billion left in these pots of money is at risk of being taken away. But the SBA's hands are tied. We know this. The SBA wishes they could distribute to more folks, but they can't based on the law, based on what was passed on December 27th last year, which of course had 3 requirements: have fewer than 300 employees, demonstrate 30% revenue reduction over an 8-week period, and live in a low-income community as defined by the census. That's been the main blocker for hundreds of thousands of you, if not millions of you. We've lobbied for this. Tens of thousands of you have signed our petitions, but the law is the law, and the law would have to change to increase targeted EIDL grant eligibility, and we don't think that's likely. The infrastructure bill had a lot of news this week. Basically, a bipartisan deal has been agreed upon. They just need to hash out the final details. It's actually $1.2 trillion. According to Fortune here, while the bill itself may not be ready for another week or so, this agreement marks a major achievement for President Biden. And I'll talk about what's in it in a future video, but I want to talk about how they're paying for it because this directly relates to the targeted EIDL grant funding, that $25+ billion that's still sitting there. Legislators have said they're going to redirect $250 billion in COVID relief funds to help pay for this bill. $250 billion would be about 25% of the total $1 trillion bill. And again, this isn't finalized yet, so this is subject to change. But of course, sitting within that is a nice $25 billion plus that's supposed to go to small business owners. So for all the lawmakers, they are focused on how to get this infrastructure bill passed. This is a $1 trillion bill, and are less focused on how to amend the passed bill to potentially make things more equitable. That's why it's not looking good for folks who don't qualify for targeted and supplemental EIDL grants. Unfortunately, we've been optimistic about this for a very long time. And we still are, but we have to be realistic at the same time. $25 billion would represent 2.5% of the $1 trillion infrastructure plan. That's what lawmakers are focused on across the aisle, Democrats and Republicans. And beyond that, we haven't heard of any other news on changes to qualifications here. So of course, we're keeping an eye on that and we will let you know. Hopefully I'm wrong and the SBA may have some creativity at play here, something that I'm missing. Would love to hear in the comments what you think about this in particular, because like I said, this $25 billion, based on the average funding per business, could help over 3.5 million of you, many of you watching this channel, with 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000. But now it's at risk of going towards infrastructure, mainly roads and other major projects. Our conclusion is that it's not looking good, but there are still a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, the SBA is still accepting new EIDL loan applicants. Of course, that's at covid19relief.sba.gov, the page you all know very well. You can apply here for a loan. As part of that process, you may be eligible for the targeted EIDL grants if you meet those 3 requirements, and subsequently, you may also be eligible for the supplemental EIDL grants. That's the extra $5K. So if you haven't applied yet, or you know someone who hasn't applied yet, encourage them to before the money runs out or is sent somewhere else. Secondly, we are still posting new grants every single week. We're curating them on our app, not only grants, but also other funding opportunities for you. Hello Skip in the App Store and Google Play. Any other news that comes out, I'll be the first to tell you. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting not only myself, but our entire team. Most importantly, have a great weekend ahead. Stay well, stay healthy, and I'll see you tomorrow.